Welcome to the Confident Motherhood Podcast. I'm your host, Anne, mama of two, holistic pregnancy and pediatric sleep consultant, and the founder of Empowered Decisions. In our seasons together, I'm here to help you step into your inner confidence from pregnancy to motherhood. Whether you are preparing to meet your baby or integrating into new mom life, this is a safe space with education and support for your journey. Join me as we raise the vibe of our motherhood collective. Welcome back to the Confident Motherhood Podcast. I'm Anne, a holistic pregnancy and infant and toddler sleep coach, and today we are ditching the bad sleep advice. We are busting baby sleep myths. And I put a list together of the most common sleep myths, the bad advice that we're commonly given or were heard. And I not only want to bust those myths, like tell you why they are false, I want to also give you the education of what's really going on here and kind of where this information has come from. But the beauty is there's been learnings and advancements and understandings in pediatric sleep over the years, 10, 20, 30 years. So I think oftentimes we are given this advice. It's well-intended. It's given from, people who love us or, want to share that advice. It's just oftentimes it's outdated or simply not true. So we're going to go kind of item by item. Some of them have connection to each other, and I'll draw those connections for you. But I take a very education-first approach with my families when I'm working one-on-one in sleep coaching containers, because it's not just about saying, hey, this is false or hey, this is not true. I want to also share that pediatric sleep education with you, which always, when we have a better understanding of our child's sleep and what's going on and how these pieces are connected, it will help you to feel more confident in understanding your child's sleep, which also then helps with our decision making around sleep. So let's just dive in. The first one, which is probably the most common, is the, keep them up later so that they'll sleep later in the morning. Keep them up longer so that they'll sleep better. This is 100% completely false. And a lot of things with baby and toddler sleep feels backwards. And two examples of that is, one, you keep them up later, they're now overtired, and it's going to backfire. So we're going to have increased chances of bedtime struggles, night wakings, earlier rises. Keep them up later, put them down for the nap later. Now we have chances of short naps. So that backfire happens because your child gets overtired. They've now been awake longer than their body and their brain can tolerate. And I always say, it's not that they can't do it. We can see babies and toddlers stay up way later than we would think that they can. It's just that we don't want them to. It's not good for their brain and their body. We get overtiredness and then bring on the sleep drama. So we see the exact inverse happen. What we want is actually a really healthy recipe, which sometimes still it feels backwards. Like I have this conversation commonly with families where let's say that the day ends early. Like let's say it was a shorter day of naps or the last nap of the day was shorter. And when you add on the next awake time that your child would be awake for, it yields an early bedtime. So let's say it's somewhere in the 6 p.m. range. That time usually freaks parents out and they're like, I'm not going to go put my baby down at 6, whatever in the evening. I don't want them up at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. And here's why this is false and why it's the inverse. The recipe going into nighttime, and there's multiple recipes, but the main recipe is that your child can put themselves to sleep, or let's say even if you're helping them, but they go to sleep at bedtime, right? And they have a good age-appropriate schedule, and they're not overtired going into nighttime. That actually sets them up for the longest night of sleep, consolidated sleep at nighttime, and their ability to lengthen their morning sleep. Babies are absolutely capable of going down in the 6 p.m. range at nighttime and waking up in the 7 a.m. range and sleeping over 12 hours. But if we stretch them, so let's say that in this hypothetical scenario that bedtime would have fallen at, 6:30, and parents are like, no way, I'm putting them down at 7, I'm putting them down at 7:30. That extra 30, that extra hour means your child is starting to lose their sleep pressure. And I have an entire other episode talking about sleep pressure and really breaking that down. But essentially, when we lose that drive and that momentum, we can now then trigger the early rise or the night wakings that we were trying to avoid by putting them down at a later time. So I can't stress this one enough. Don't keep them up later. Don't try to push them longer with any intention that it's going to improve sleep, because more often than not, it's actually going to backfire and create the sleep drama that we don't want. Now, this next baby sleep myth that we're busting has similar logic, but it's regarding nutrition. Feed your baby more milk, kind of bulk them up, and they will sleep better. Now, separately, in a lot of these topics, I have other podcast episodes where it's tying down to the root of that information, that education. But sleep and nutrition are crucially connected. So while it is false that you can feed your baby more, bulk them up, and they're going to sleep better, we do want babies learning to feed efficiently and getting all their nutritional needs. Like, we do want that happening, specifically in the daytime. And younger babies, yes, there's still an opportunity for them to have night nutrition. But when we try to feed them more, especially when you have a baby who has a feed sleep association. I was a breastfeeding mom for a good chunk of time with both of my boys. They 100% had feed sleep associations. I could have fed them with all the milk that my body produced. It was not going to guarantee that they were going to wake up and not look for more help and going back to sleep, because that's what they needed. So this is a frustrating, many families struggle with this frustration, and I'll hear a lot like, there's no way that they're still hungry. Like, they just got a nice big bottle or a nice big feed and they're up an hour, 2 hours later. And that comes down to, it's not the trigger for the wake up, right? Maybe they were tired. Maybe it's not, they don't have an age appropriate schedule, those sorts of things. They lost their sleep pressure. They don't have their skills yet. Those are the things that's going to trigger that disruption. But when we help to break those associations, specifically with feeding, it's so we can help them learn to feed efficiently in the right pockets of the day. So now we're moving away from needing to bulk them up in some capacity so that they are then sleeping longer stretches at nighttime. So it's actually the full piece. It's the full day of efficient feeding that is going to support better naps and better night sleep, not some big bottle or big feed. This also kind of goes back to more of the outdated advice conversation where, a few decades ago, we're talking about, we're going to give them rice cereal, right? We're going to kind of bulk them up in that capacity. And you will 1000% hear parents and be like, no, that actually really helped my child. And nothing is ever one size fits all. So there are some babies, depending on their journey with nutrition, that need different things, right? So it's not to completely wipe out that conversation, but that's where it's coming from, is this idea that we're going to introduce bulkier things to them, which is then going to improve their sleep, which just happens to not be true. Next baby sleep myth that we're busting, same topic of nutrition, is dream feeding and it kind of helping your baby to learn to sleep through the night or get longer stretches. So this is a false and a true, and it just kind of comes down to age group and what the intention is. Because this advice oftentimes will come from pediatricians to families, especially I work with a lot of young babies, 3, 4, 5, 6 months old. And dream feeding, by definition, is any time that, let's say you pull your baby out of their bassinet, out of their crib, and they're still sleeping, and you offer a feed. So they're kind of eating and sleeping at the same time. Or let's say you kind of wake them up and they're eating. Usually it happens around, let's say, 10 p.m. And so your baby went to bed. You dream fed them around 10, where you kind of wake them up, feed them, and then they just go back to sleep and you just put them back down with an intention that now when you go to sleep around that same time, now you both can get a longer stretch before baby's waking up and needs nutrition again. And this can be really helpful for younger babies. Not every baby though. Again, not everything is one size fits all. So sometimes this does help in the younger months to get a nice, a longer stretch so that parents can also get rest. But when babies, again, have feed sleep associations, you can go do that dream feed at 10 p.m. Doesn't mean they're not going to wake up 1 to 2 hours later and be like, hey, I'm ready again. So it's always case by case, but dream feeding is better suited for younger babies. And even if I'm working with a family with a younger baby who's in these younger months, right? And maybe that is still an age where dream feeding is quote unquote appropriate. When I'm working with families, I'm helping them to move away from dream feeding. Why? Because I want nighttime developing naturally. I want them falling asleep at bedtime. I want to see when they're waking up. And if we are doing a feed, I want it happening in the part of the night where it makes the most sense. And 12 to 4 is a common hunger window. It's connected also to milk production. So when we have that feed that's naturally popping up in their hunger window, we can offer it. They go back to sleep. They learn to sleep until morning. And then as skills develop and we're getting rid of overtiredness, all these things, then babies learn to sleep through the night and they drop that feed for us. So oftentimes I see that dream feeding is kept into the equation far longer than we need it to, when we can just be letting nighttime develop naturally as we are helping them to progress their skills. So dream feeding with an intention to improve sleep, false, but it can work. It is best suited for a season of time when babies are younger. Next baby sleep myth that we're busting is very much newborn-esque sleep advice that's bad advice and also outdated. But this idea that we have to keep their nap environment in the daytime bright and noisy, or else your baby's not going to learn the difference between day versus night. Now, I have another episode, like I've mentioned with multiple, about newborn sleep information. And this myth is busted also in that episode. And I even think I said these exact same words in that episode. You could bring the circus in every day. I don't care. It's not going to teach your baby the difference between day versus night. But that's a developmental thing, because developmentally, sleep circadian rhythm is going to develop closer to 4 months. So you could do all kinds of crazy things in the newborn phase, and it's not going to actually teach your baby that this is day and this is night. Newborns are essentially operating on 24 hours of eating and sleeping, which is why we feel like we've been hit by a truck when we go from having a proper day and a night to like bringing this new baby home, and that's how we're operating. But we can do things like capping daytime sleep, like, capping a nap at 2 hours and not letting your baby oversleep, and kind of like reverse day versus night routines, sleep environment. Yes, there are things that we can help them with until developmentally it starts coming into the equation, but it's not just going to happen with light and noise. Next baby sleep myth that we're busting is, in order for your baby to be kind of like an on-the-go sleeper, that you have to get them used to it. And this one is a true and a false also, and it's got its very proper false elements, and it also has some truth in it. So I'm going to try to explain these different scenarios, hopefully as clearly as possible. And this kind of comes down to the first layer, I would say, and this is a bigger conversation, but every baby has what I would think of as like a sleep personality. So some babies are more or less light sensitive, more or less noise sensitive, more flexible with their sleep. Some rely a little bit more on that, good sleep environment and their perfect schedule. Some rely on those things a little bit more. So think of it like a spectrum. And I do think it's important to, especially when I've worked with families and they've gone through sleep coaching and we've had that structure, and I work with families for 2 weeks, but when we've laid that sleep foundation, usually families have gone from crappy sleep to great sleep. And now they're like, I don't want to mess it up. Like, how do I get out of the house? And I set you up for success with that. I'm like, how do you get out of the house and go live a normal life? Because sleep doesn't have to be perfect for sleep to be good. Okay. Disclaimer on that. That probably should be its own episode. But it is important to get out. And getting out isn't necessarily solely so that your baby gets used to it, but so that you build the confidence, so that you can go run the errands, you can go away for the weekend, you can go to your family's house in the evening, far past bedtime, and see that like they can still sleep, right? You can still get home, you can still do your thing. So that is important, to have that flexibility. And yes, when that is a normal part of our life, our babies adapt to those things. They get used to those environments and that sort of thing. But you still want to keep the core. And if I'm picking numbers, I'm always going to choose an 80-20. That when you're home in your normal day-to-day life, 80% of the time, they got the great sleep environment, they got the great schedule, we got all the things set up for them, and we're really protecting that. But we protect that so that your child is not carrying around sleep debt, aka overtiredness, days, weeks, months of it. So that when you get out, so that when you're on the go, so that when you're living your life, it's not as disruptive to your baby. So there are elements of like, yeah, get out, live, do whatever's normal for you. But when you're home, I want you to protect it. So those are the things where it's like, yes, technically there's kind of a get used to place, but it's not something where we're like, oh, well, we're just going to do naps in the car or the stroller or whatever, because they can't always be in this perfect crib. 100% agreed. It's not always going to be a perfect environment. To inject or insert a personal example here, my first son is the entire reason I'm a sleep coach. But, I went through a coaching process, and every time we traveled early on, again, first time mom, I was like, oh, I gotta, get the room darker and whatever. And guess what? There was many sleep environments that I could not get as perfect as I wanted them to be. And he still slept great. So it's like, it's always their sleep skills and the fact that they're not overtired that's allowing you to have such flexibility. But the getting used to piece isn't always necessarily true in this conversation. Next, baby sleep myth, talking about sleep training here. If you go through sleep training, your baby has to be on a perfect schedule and have the perfect environment, or else it's going to turn to shit, or else your baby's going to regress. And this is false. Same conversation. I like to lay the foundation so that you can go live your life. Actually, it's the inverse of that. That's what I'll share with families. When we lay the foundation and you give me the 10 days, 14 days, now you have flexibility. Now you actually can go do the things to where prior sleep was a struggle. Your baby was overtired. They didn't have a great schedule. It wasn't age appropriate, all these things. And then when you go live your life, it's like sleep is so terrible. And that will also do the inverse for families where they don't want to travel. They don't want to leave the house because even if sleep isn't super great at home, it's still better than it is when you're away. So no, even if you've gone through sleep training, sleep doesn't have to be perfect. I'm definitely more type A. So I always try to prioritize sleep and create some perfection as best I can. But over the years, I'm 8 years deep into the mom game. I also know that that is not what is 100% needed, and things don't have to be perfect because perfect in general, it's not sustainable, right? It's not real life. Shit happens. And we just kind of have to roll with it and have more of a flexible and a fluid mindset when it comes to our baby and our child's sleep. Last baby sleep myth that we are busting today is regressions are inevitable. Oh, I can't stand this one. I can't stand this one. And if any families have worked with me and you're tuning in, you know that I hate the word regressions. Not because of simply the word, it's just, I don't even think we're ever actually taught it. I just think it's the energy around how sleep regressions are talked about that gives all of us the impression that sleep regressions are inevitable. And if you're unfamiliar with that term, it's essentially a time usually connected to your child developing a skill or turning a milestone age or teething where you can expect for sleep to be bad, for sleep to regress, to go backwards. And I always confidently share with my families that are coming on board when you go through a holistic sleep coaching process. And I emphasize holistic because we're looking at all of the factors that affect your child's sleep. So there's no cracks in that foundation. Things are solid. So when they have their skills and they're not tired and they're on a good schedule, blah, blah, blah. Your baby's not going to just wake up one day because they're 8 months or because they're learning to walk or because they're now a toddler and like all of a sudden they can't sleep. That doesn't happen. But sleep and development are crucially connected. So of course we can see ebbs and flows and changes in sleep habits and patterns. Yes, absolutely. That crucial connection means that during peak growing times or learning skills, especially, major skills, is that we can see naps get a bit shorter. We can see some earlier rises. We can see some extra night wakings where we hadn't seen them. But it doesn't mean sleep's going backwards. We just see some changes in their habits and then sleep resumes to normal. The way sleep regressions are communicated, or again, the energy around it is like, oh, you just wait, right? You just wait for 4 months. You just wait for 8 months. You just wait for this. But it also leaves parents in this like, okay, well, there's light at the end of the tunnel. It's just a phase. I have another episode specifically talking about the 4-month sleep regression, which usually kicks off everything, about it's not just a phase. So unfortunately, so many moms and so many families are suffering in silence, trying to kind of white knuckle your way through sleep problems when really there's probably many things that can be changed within scheduling, sleep environment, sleep pressure associations to get sleep into a better place, to improve sleep, to help that child get better rest. It's not just a phase. And no, sleep regressions are not inevitable. You don't have to go through sleep regressions. I kind of like to think about it as you don't have to get on that ride. You don't have to sign up for that. But we do want to understand how sleep and development are connected so that once you're on your way with your child's sleep, you know what to look for. You know the signs. You know how to stay consistent through it so that it doesn't turn into more sleep problems than you're like currently having in that season or pocket of disruption. So that sleep regressions are inevitable, completely false. And I'm sure that there are many other sleep myths that I'm missing right now, but this felt like the heavy hitters list, like the most common that I hear, that I, advice that was given to me and that circulates. Obviously, I've worked with hundreds of families over the years. So if you have any that you would like questioned or busted, definitely drop me some comments or send me an email, because I actually can't believe that today is episode 12 of season 2. So today wraps up season 2. It's April 2025. So I will be taking a pause for the summer. And then I'm going to be relaunching with season 3 in the fall, which I'm super excited about. Another list and lineup of topics to come. And I also plan to do a mini series of the podcast in the summer with a very specific and exciting topic. So definitely tune in this summer. And, with that gap of time from spring to fall where we still get to connect and talk about these important topics. But I'm really proud. It's not an easy thing to kind of bring something new into your life and fit something new into your schedule. And it is just wild to me that already 2 seasons have come and gone with the podcast. And I am very excited for what's to come. So again, connect with me on socials, reply to the email, drop me some comments. I would love to hear from you. I hope this episode was insightful and helpful, not just from a busting myths perspective, but also being able to receive and absorb sleep information, which again just helps us on our journey with our little ones. So until the next episode, lots of love. Whether you're a tired mom struggling with your little one's sleep or an expecting mom looking for empowerment and advocacy as you prepare for birth, I'm here to show up for you with proven strategies and education to elevate your journey. You deserve to feel heard and given the tools to have success. Mama, you do not have to navigate your pregnancy or sleep struggles alone. Head over to empoweredwithann.com to discover how we can support you. Confidence, empowerment, and peace are just a click away.